Most nights, your yard begins the same way. A few birds linger in the fading light. A sparrow hops through the grass one last time. Somewhere above you, wings cut across the evening sky before disappearing into the trees. Then slowly, the sounds begin to fade. The chirping stops first, then the movement. Then even the branches seem to settle into stillness. By midnight, the yard feels abandoned. You look outside and see nothing except dark outlines of fences, leaves, and empty air. The birds that filled the space all day appear completely gone, and that is usually the moment people stop paying attention. They lock the doors, turn off the lights, go to sleep believing the small world outside their window has shut down for the night. But between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., your yard is not asleep, because during these hours, birds begin doing things they almost never do in daylight. They move through spaces you never notice. They react to sounds too small for you to hear. And some quietly survive moments that most humans never realize are happening just a few feet outside their home. So if the yard looks empty every night, why are so many birds still awake? What makes these hours strange is not the darkness. It is the fact that almost everything happening inside it goes unnoticed. While you sleep, the birds in your yard enter an entirely different world, one built around silence, caution, temperature, memory, and survival. Some stop moving almost completely, lowering their body temperature to conserve energy through the coldest part of the night. Others wake repeatedly, scanning the dark for movement without ever fully opening their eyes. Small groups quietly shift positions between branches. A single sound from below can send an entire tree into sudden alertness for only a few seconds, before everything becomes silent again. And sometimes, between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., birds abandon the exact places where they slept earlier in the night for reasons most people never see. A shadow moving across the fence, a change in wind direction, a predator passing somewhere nearby. Tonight, while your neighborhood appears completely still, hundreds of tiny decisions may already be happening outside your window. Most people never notice any of it, but once you understand what birds are actually doing during these hours, the silence in your yard never feels empty again. During the day, birds seem easy to follow. You see them on fences, rooftops, power lines, and scattered across the grass. Their movements feel visible and predictable, but at night, most of them disappear into places your eyes naturally ignore. A common sparrow, for example, rarely sleeps out in the open. As darkness settles, it begins searching for narrow protected spaces where wind and movement are reduced. Dense hedges, thick climbing vines, the inside edges of small trees, places that look ordinary in daylight suddenly become shelter. And often, these locations are much closer to you than you realize. A sparrow may spend the entire night less than 10 feet from your window without you ever noticing it. Completely still, hidden behind a layer of leaves that looks empty from the outside. Some birds return to the exact same roost night after night, memorizing safe entry points and escape routes through branches in complete darkness. Others gather silently in small groups, positioning themselves close together to reduce heat loss before dawn. If you walked through your yard at 3 a.m. with a flashlight, the space might still appear empty at first. But above you, inside bushes, under roof edges, deep within trees, dozens of birds could already be there, awake just enough to survive the night. Not gone, just hidden inside the parts of your yard you were never meant to notice. For a small bird, nighttime is not a period of rest. It is a biological problem that has to be survived. A sparrow weighs only around 25 to 30 grams. Its body is small enough to lose heat rapidly once the air temperature begins to fall. And between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., the night often reaches its coldest point. That means a bird sleeping quietly in your yard may already be burning through a dangerous amount of stored energy just to stay alive until sunrise. To survive this, many birds enter a controlled state of energy conservation. Their heart rate slows. Their breathing becomes shallower. Feathers expand outward, trapping layers of warm air close to the body like insulation. Some species lower their body temperature slightly during the night to reduce energy use. Others pull one leg upward into their feathers to minimize heat loss from exposed skin. Even their sleeping posture matters. A bird facing the wrong direction into cold wind can lose body heat significantly faster over several hours. So they constantly choose locations designed to block airflow from multiple sides. And still, winter nights can be brutal. A tiny bird may lose up to 10% of its body weight before morning simply from surviving the cold. Which means that while your yard appears calm and motionless in the middle of the night, countless small bodies are quietly balancing themselves between exhaustion, freezing temperatures, and sunrise. During the day, most birds behave as if space belongs to them alone. They defend feeding areas, chase rivals away from branches, compete over water, crumbs, and territory with constant movement and noise. But sometime after midnight, that behavior begins to change. The same birds that spent the afternoon pushing each other apart may now be sleeping only inches from one another inside the same tree. In colder weather, small birds often gather into tightly packed nighttime groups called communal roosts, not for comfort, for survival. Inside a dense hedge or deep within layered branches, several birds position themselves side by side, feathers expanded, bodies almost touching in the dark. Each small body releases heat. Together, the temperature inside the group becomes slightly warmer than the air outside. Only a few degrees can matter. A single sheltered branch may hold more life than an entire yard during daylight, and the strangest part is how invisible it remains. From outside, the tree looks completely silent, motionless, empty. But hidden inside it, dozens of tiny eyes may open and close throughout the night as birds adjust positions, respond to distant sounds, or press closer together when temperatures drop before dawn. The chaos of daytime disappears. No territorial calls, no chasing, no competition. Because between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., survival becomes more important than ownership, and for a few silent hours, even wild birds understand the value of staying close to each other in the dark. Sleep, for most animals, means disconnection from the world around them. But for birds, complete disconnection can be dangerous. A sleeping bird that becomes fully unaware for even a few seconds may never wake up again. So instead, many species exist in a strange state between sleep and alertness throughout the night. Their bodies rest, but part of the mind continues monitoring the environment. Scientists have observed that some birds can briefly activate portions of the brain while still remaining physically asleep. Not enough to fully wake, just enough to detect danger. That is why nighttime inside your yard is filled with tiny reactions humans rarely notice. A branch creaks softly in the wind. Somewhere far away, a cat knocks against a fence. Dry leaves shift across the ground, and almost instantly, hidden birds begin responding. Eyes open for only a moment, heads reposition slightly inside feathers, claws tighten around branches. Then silence returns again. If you stood outside between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. long enough, you would begin noticing how alive the darkness actually is. Not loud alive, careful alive. Because throughout the night, birds are constantly listening to an invisible map of sounds around them. The hum of distant traffic, moving air through leaves, footsteps, wings, predators. Even while appearing completely motionless, their minds never fully leave the world outside the branch. Most people think nighttime empties the world. You look outside after 2 a.m. and see still trees, dark fences, and silent air. Nothing appears to be moving. So the mind assumes nothing is there. But the yard was never empty. It only became harder for human senses to read, because hidden behind leaves, under roof edges, inside bushes, and high within branches, an entire layer of awareness continues through the night. Birds are still tracking movement, still measuring sound, still reacting to subtle changes in temperature and wind long before sunrise arrives. The silence itself can be misleading. To humans, silence feels inactive. But in nature, silence often means something is watching carefully. And once you realize this, ordinary nighttime begins to feel different. That tree outside your window no longer looks empty. The dark shape near the fence no longer feels lifeless. Somewhere above you, small creatures are already awake enough to survive the next few hours before dawn, not hiding from the night, living inside it. What makes the night feel so strange is that familiar birds begin behaving in ways most people never expect. A pigeon, for example, may spend the entire day walking confidently through crowded sidewalks without fear. But at night, the same bird searches for elevated ledges and hidden corners where it can monitor movement below while remaining almost invisible. Crows become quieter, but not always inactive. In some neighborhoods, they briefly wake before dawn and shift between roosting spots in complete darkness, communicating with soft sounds most people sleep through entirely. Even small backyard birds can behave unpredictably during these hours. A sparrow startled by sudden light may remain frozen for several minutes instead of flying away immediately. Its survival instinct changes at night. Movement becomes risky. Stillness becomes protection. And artificial light has started altering these behaviors in unusual ways. Street lamps, porch lights, and glowing windows can confuse birds into singing hours too early, interrupting natural sleep cycles and changing feeding patterns before sunrise. Some birds now begin morning calls nearly an hour earlier in urban neighborhoods compared to darker rural areas, which means the nighttime world in your yard is no longer entirely natural. It is adapting around human presence in real time. And somewhere between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., while most people believe birds have completely disappeared, familiar species are quietly making decisions, changing routines, and responding to a version of the world humans almost never witness. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., your yard may feel isolated. One quiet tree, one fence line, one small patch of darkness outside your home. But the moment you zoom out, the scale becomes almost impossible to imagine, because while you sleep, this is happening everywhere at once. Across neighborhoods, parks, rooftops, farms, alleyways, telephone wires, forests, and city streets, millions upon millions of birds are moving through the same hidden hours together. In a single large city, nighttime roosts can contain tens of thousands of birds packed into only a few blocks of trees. Some species travel miles before darkness just to gather in safer communal sleeping areas. And above many cities, migration never fully stops. While streets below remain silent, enormous numbers of birds continue crossing the night sky completely unseen. Some migrate using moonlight, magnetic fields, river patterns, and even faint star positions to navigate through darkness with astonishing precision. On peak migration nights, scientists estimate that millions of birds can pass over a single region before sunrise. Most humans never notice any of it. You sleep beneath one of the largest living movements on Earth without hearing a sound. And somewhere outside your own window tonight, hidden among branches or moving silently overhead, tiny creatures weighing less than a handful of coins are surviving cold, avoiding predators, navigating darkness, and preparing for another dawn with instincts older than cities themselves. Which means the quiet space outside your home is not a small world at all. It is connected to a massive invisible system that comes alive every single night while humanity looks the other way. Tomorrow night, your yard will probably look the same as it always has. The branches will darken after sunset. The daytime sounds will slowly disappear. And sometime after midnight, the space outside your window will seem completely empty again. But now, the silence may feel different. Because you know it is not absence, it is concealment. Somewhere inside those trees, birds may already be tucked between leaves and branches, conserving warmth through the coldest hours before dawn. Others may wake for only a few seconds at a time, listening to movements too quiet for human ears to notice. A small shift in wind, a distant sound below, the vibration of another creature moving through the dark. And hidden within all that stillness is an entire world continuing without attention. That may be the strangest part of all. For most of your life, these things were happening only a few feet away from you every single night, completely unnoticed. Not because they were rare, because humans were never looking closely enough. So the next time you wake up in the middle of the night, pause for a moment before closing the curtains. Look carefully at the yard outside. The darkness may appear empty at first, but somewhere beyond what your eyes can easily see, countless small lives are still awake, waiting silently for morning.